Okay, you all understand that? Yes? Election fraud, you've heard the term?
This isn't just politics, it's preparation for a power grab. While the country watches debates and polls, Trump is redrawing the rules. Not to compete, but to control. Maps are being rigged, voter data is being collected, and the courts have cleared the path. This is how you fix an election without touching a single ballot. Let's break it down. Something dangerous is happening in Texas. The state isn't just redrawing districts, it's erasing democracy from the map. Ari Berman, a longtime voting rights analyst, calls it unprecedented, and he's not exaggerating. With Trump backing the move, Republicans are reinforcing an already gerrymandered system to eliminate political competition, especially from communities of color. This isn't a political strategy, it's design. A design where the outcome is pre-written and the voters are just filling in blanks that no longer matter.
What's happening in Texas is Trump's most tangible plan to rig the 2026 midterms. It's not his only plan to try to manipulate those upcoming elections, but it's the most concrete plan we've seen yet, because 5 new seats in Texas would put Democrats at a huge disadvantage in terms of being able to take back the House. It would give Texas Republicans nearly 80% of seats in a state where Trump only won 56% of the vote in 2024. And it's really unprecedented because this Texas map is already gerrymandered by Republicans. It already limits Democratic representation. It already limits representation for communities of color. And now that would be much worse. It would be even more skewed. And the fact that this is happening mid-decade is incredibly unusual. And the fact that it's being pushed by the president of the United States is even more unusual. They're trying to pick up seats for Republicans by diluting the power of communities of color in Texas, by dismantling a district held by one Black Democrat, a district held by another Latino Democrat, districts that are supporting other Democrats from communities of color. So a third of Texans are moved around in these maps, but 2/3 of Texans of color are moved around in this map. So it's really a surgical dismantling of representation for communities of color.
But redistricting is only step 1. Behind the scenes, Trump's allies are making calls to at least 9 states trying to access their voter rolls and even probe election equipment. It's a coordinated reach into the core of state-run elections. Alaska, Wisconsin, Florida, and New York, none of them safe. And while federal law grants states control over elections, Trump is quietly shifting that control toward himself through executive muscle.
Donald Trump is now making a power grab for the 2026 midterm elections, with reports now coming in that his minions are calling around state governments and they're trying to get into their voter rolls and equipment. Right? And for some very important context here, that the federal government is supposed to have a very limited role in dictating how elections are run, thanks to a little sexy thing known as the Constitution. Right? Article 1, Section 4 states, the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. Right? And so that is why whenever the federal government tries to stick its fingers into the election process, state and local officials get really pissed off. But that appears to be exactly what the Trump administration is now doing, with the Washington Post reporting that the Justice Department has recently asked at least 9 states for copies of their voter rolls. We're talking Alaska, Colorado, Florida, Minnesota, Nevada, New Hampshire, New York, Oklahoma, and Wisconsin. With so far, Colorado and Florida reportedly handing over the information, though only which is generally available to the public, and the other states still reviewing the requests. Right, as far as what exactly the DOJ is planning to do with those rolls, we can kind of only speculate, with the president's supporters claiming that they're just trying to make sure that elections are secure and prevent voter fraud, though critics accusing them of trying to manipulate or even rig the 2026 midterms. Though all of that is, according to the Post, 2 DOJ lawyers explained their request by saying they meant to enforce Trump's executive order mandating certain rules around election procedure.
The door was opened years ago by the Supreme Court. Berman was right to call them out. In 2013, they gutted the Voting Rights Act, pre-clearance protections, giving states like Texas a free pass to change election laws without oversight. Then in 2019, the court ruled that partisan gerrymandering was outside the reach of federal judges altogether. The result? As long as a state claims its redistricting is partisan, it's untouchable. Trump's team knows that, and they're exploiting it legally and unapologetically.
What about the role of the Supreme Court?
Well, the Supreme Court laid the groundwork for this kind of egregious gerrymandering. They laid the groundwork for it by gutting the Voting Rights Act. States like Texas, which had a long history of discrimination, previously had to approve their voting changes with the federal government. They don't have to do that anymore, so that makes it easier to discriminate. And the Supreme Court also, in 2019, in a case called Rucho versus Common Cause, said that the federal courts couldn't stop partisan gerrymandering, that they not only couldn't block these kind of lawsuits, they couldn't even review them. That means that if states like Texas draw these really egregious maps and they say, we're just doing it for partisan purposes, that, yeah, Trump told us to do it, yeah, that might look partisan, but that's fine because partisan gerrymandering is legal. That's because of what the Supreme Court has done. So the Supreme Court, John Roberts, the Chief Justice, and the other conservative justices, they have directly laid the groundwork for what's happening in Texas right now.
So I want to talk about what's happening in the rest of the country in response.
California Governor Gavin Newsom didn't mince words. He revealed Trump called the Texas governor with a blunt demand. Find me new seats. Not votes, seats. The kind of request that used to happen in secret is now part of a public playbook. Newsom says this is the moment to abandon political complacency. Because if you're playing fair in a game that's already fixed, you're not playing at all. You're surrendering.
He just made a call to the governor of Texas saying, in this case, not find me the votes, but find me new seats to rig the game. If we want to still be in this game, we need to disabuse ourselves, disenthrall ourselves of the status quo in the past. We have got to enter a new mindset, and we've got to get back on this playing field, and we've got to do it with the kind of vigor that our kids and grandkids deserve, that liberty and freedom deserves this moment. The founding fathers deserve the principles that define the best of Roman Republic and Greek democracy. That's on the line unless we stand the line and stand guard of this democracy, and that means we got to go on offense.
And Adam Schiff laid out what happens next.
So where would this leave us as a country? If Texas goes through this effort to rig the game, and California has to respond, and New York and other states, and suddenly we see all of these partisan gerrymanders around the country. Well, first of all, we already have an unequal playing field, where so many of the red states are already engaging in the worst forms of gerrymander, and many blue states like California have decided to un-gerrymander through independent commissions. So the game is already stacked against the Democratic Party to a certain degree. We cannot afford to have Republicans make it even worse. They know their big, ugly bill is horribly unpopular. This is why they feel the need to rig the game, because they're worried about losing the House, as I believe they will in a fair election next November. But if we go down this path, we need to keep something in mind. And that is, at the end of the day, whatever the Republicans in Texas do, however California has to respond, or New York, or Illinois, or other states, what we ultimately need to do is pass a national redistricting reform. A national law that says that in every state there shall be independent commissions drawing the lines, that voters should pick their elected officials and not the other way around. So that's where we need to end up, and frankly, during the beginning of the Biden administration, when Democrats controlled the House and the Senate, I was making the argument that the first thing we should do was pass voting rights and national redistricting reform. Had we done that, as we should have, as I begged that we do, we would not be in this position today. Indeed, if there were fair House lines drawn throughout the country, we would have never lost the House to begin with. The fact that we didn't get it done is on us. That was a mistake. We dare not repeat that mistake if Republicans go forward with a partisan gerrymander in Texas. We must respond back. We must fight back in every way we can, even through redistricting. But let's not lose sight of where we need to end up, and that is with voting rights, a national redistricting reform, and an end altogether of the partisan gerrymander. It's the only way we can stop the cheater.
Meanwhile, Trump is spinning all of this as protection. He recently signed what he called the farthest-reaching executive order in U.S. history to secure elections. But in practice, it's a gateway. It gives legal cover to every quiet intrusion into state systems, every aggressive voter data grab, and every move that tips power toward Washington, or more specifically toward Trump. It's election control disguised as election security.
A lot in here, but we believe that these are very important steps that we need to be taking as an administration at your direction to ensure that our elections are as secure as they possibly can be.
Okay, you all understand that? Yes. Election fraud, you've heard the term. We'll end it, hopefully. At least this will go a long way toward ending it. There are other steps that we will be taking in the coming weeks, and we think we'll be able to end up getting fair elections. Perhaps some people think I shouldn't be complaining because we won in a landslide, but we got to straighten out our election. This country is so sick because of the election, the fake elections and the bad elections, and we're going to straighten it out one way or the other.
This isn't about 2026. It's about reshaping the system before voters even show up. From Supreme Court rulings to silent federal overreach, from rigged maps in Texas to backroom data grabs in New York, this is the architecture of minority rule. And unless it's confronted directly with law, reform, and resistance, the next election won't be stolen. It'll be handed over in advance. What if the next election is already decided and you just haven't been told yet? What if the maps, the data, and the courts are being used to rewrite democracy in plain sight? Let us know in the comments section. What if Trump's 2026 strategy isn't to win, but to remove the need to?